tent was darker than Eli had expected when Mara led him inside, the air thick, with a lingering scent of old popcorn and something metallic, almost like rust or dried blood. A single lantern hung from a fraying rope, its flame flickering weakly, casting long, quivering shadows against the faded canvas walls. Mara's face, pale and framed by dark hair streaked with grime, looked almost ghostly in the dim light. Her carnival makeup was cracked and peeling, the once vibrant colors dulled and smeared as though she had been crying beneath the paint. "You need to understand," Mara whispered, her voice hoarse and trembling. "This carnival, it's not just a place. It's alive, it feeds." Eli's heart thudded painfully in his chest. He remembered the strange disappearances, the hollow laughter that sometimes seemed to echo without source. But to say the carnival was alive, to say it fed. It sounded like something from one of the horror books he'd read late at night, tales woven with shadows and fear. "Feeds." Eli's voice was barely more than a breath. Mara nodded slowly, eyes darting nervously toward the tent's flaps, where the distant sounds of laughter and music drifted in, distorted and eerie in the still night. Not on money, not on food, on souls, on the life essence of those who come here. That's why the carnival never leaves. It's trapped, and in turn, it traps everyone else. The room seemed to grow colder, the fragile flame of the lantern wavering as a sudden gust slipped through the seams of the tent. Eli swallowed hard, fighting a wave of nausea. He wanted to reject this story, to tell Mara she was wrong, that it was all just a terrible nightmare born of loneliness and fear. But the look in her eyes, the weight of years trapped in this place, made skepticism a luxury he could no longer afford. "How?" Eli asked, voice cracking. "How does it do that?" Mara took a shuddering breath. "Through the laughter, the lights, the games, they're all illusions, bait. The carnival draws you in, makes you forget yourself. Each ride, each prize, every laugh is a thread tightening around your soul. Slowly, you lose bits of yourself until there's nothing left but a hollow shell." Outside, the carnival's music swelled suddenly, a warped calliope tune that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere. Eli pressed his palms against his knees, trying to steady his breathing. "Why do you stay?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Mara's eyes flickered with a sadness that struck deeper than any ghost story. "Because I'm bound to it now. Because fighting it alone is impossible. Because if I leave, I'll be consumed like the others." A shiver crawled down Eli's spine. The carnival was no longer just a place of fun and strange wonder. It was a predator, patient and insatiable. It had been feeding here, under the carnival lights, on the very souls of the people he had seen smiling, laughing, and dancing just days before. He thought of Tommy, bright-eyed and carefree, and his unease deepened. If Mara's words were true, then every visit to the carnival was a gamble with fate. Every laugh was a risk, but maybe knowing was the first step to fighting back. Eli rose from the rough wooden bench where Mara sat and moved toward the tent's entrance. The carnival's glow outside was hypnotic, a swirl of neon and shadow that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. He glanced back at Mara, whose silhouette was now almost blending with the darkness. "I'm not going to let it win," Eli said firmly, "not if I can help it." Her faint smile was almost a flicker of hope in the gloom. "Then you need to be ready," she warned. "Because once the carnival knows you see through its illusions, it won't let you go quietly." As Eli stepped back into the night, the laughter and music felt different, hollow, hungry, and watching. The carnival's grip was tightening, and the flickering lights beneath the big top were no longer just bright. They were a warning. He was trapped in the glow now, and there was no turning back. The air outside was thick, with the scent of cotton candy and rain-damp grass. Eli's footsteps echoed softly against the cobblestones as he made his way through the carnival grounds. The cheerful chatter of visitors was a thin veil over the oppressive atmosphere Mara had revealed. Everywhere, the lights blinked with unnatural intensity, and the shadows beneath the tents seemed to twist and stretch like living things. He paused near the carousel, watching the painted horses spin endlessly, their eyes wide and glassy. A faint whispering seemed to drift from the ride, a susurrus of voices too soft to understand, but filled with yearning and despair. Eli's reflection caught in a cracked mirror nearby, his face distorted and flickering between a boy staring into wonder and one staring into abyss. He thought about the souls trapped beneath his feet, caught forever in the Carnival's web. A sudden cold breeze stirred the ribbons and banners overhead, carrying with it the faintest echo of a child's laugh, bright, innocent, but laced with something else, something darker. He shivered and pressed forward, the Carnival's pulse thudding in his chest like a second heartbeat. The hunger was real. The Carnival was hungry, and it was watching him. Eli met Mara again by the edge of the Ferris wheel, its towering silhouette looming against the night sky. The wheel's lights blinked sporadically, casting fractured patterns over her pale face. "How do we fight something like this?" Eli asked, voice low and urgent. Mara hesitated, then said, "By not letting it forget we're here. By holding on to who we are, no matter what it shows us." Her hand brushed his arm, a moment of fragile solidarity in the heart of the nightmare. Together, they stood beneath the Carnival lights, caught between illusion and truth, hunger and hope. The Carnival's glow was brighter than ever, but Eli's resolve burned fiercer still. The night was far from over, and the Carnival's hunger had only just begun to show its teeth. The sterile corridor of the orphanage hummed with the low, incessant drone of air circulation and distant mechanical whirs. Elara stood silently by the observation window, her sharp, reflective eyes tracing the movements of the glass children within the ward. They moved with a fragile grace, their translucent limbs catching the cold fluorescent light, casting fractured reflections on the polished floor. The air was thin with a clinical chill, and in that moment, Elara felt the weight of the orphanage's demands pressing down on her. Across the room, caretaker Dane paced steadily. His posture was rigid, his movements precise and unyielding, like the clockwork mechanisms embedded deep within the orphanage's design. He called the children to order with a flat voice, his words void of warmth or hesitation. "Line up for the daily maintenance inspection," he instructed, his tone more command than request. The glass children obeyed, their bodies shimmering softly as they moved into formation. There was a mechanical rhythm to their obedience, a quiet surrender to the protocols that dictated their existence. Elara's gaze softened as she watched Lumen step hesitantly to the front, his faintly glowing heart pulsing beneath the fragile surface. She knelt beside him, careful not to startle the delicate child. Her breath misted the glass as she whispered, "You're safe here, Lumen. I won't let anything happen to you." Nearby, Dane's eyes flickered toward Elara, unreadable and cold. "Caretaker Elara," he said sharply, "your leniency endangers the order we must maintain. The children require discipline, not indulgence." Elara met his gaze steadily, her voice firm but gentle. "They're not machines, Dane. They feel even if their bodies are fragile. We owe them more than just rules." Before Dane could respond, the heavy metallic clatter of boots echoed down the hall. Security lead Royce appeared, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. Clad in dark tactical gear, his cold eyes swept the ward with a calculating scrutiny. The glass children recoiled subtly, their delicate forms trembling with apprehension. Royce's voice was low and uncompromising as he addressed the caretakers. "Director Voss has ordered heightened security measures. No deviations from protocol will be tolerated." Elara's heart clenched. The orphanage's walls seemed to tighten around her, the sterile coldness seeping into her bones. She glanced at Lumen, whose faint pulses beat steadily beneath his fragile ribs. "We must protect them," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Later, in the dim light of a small break room, Elara found herself alone with Dane. The tension between them was palpable, a quiet storm brewing beneath polite facades. "Your compassion blinds you," Dane said quietly but firmly. "The children's fragility is a liability. Strict adherence to rules is the only way to ensure their survival." Elara shook her head, frustration lacing her voice. "Survival without dignity is no life at all. They deserve more than to be caged by fear and control." Dane's expression hardened. "You risk everything with your softness. Remember, Director Voss's orders are clear." Elara's eyes darkened with resolve. Then I'll find a way to protect them, even if I have to stand against the entire orphanage. The clash of philosophies hung in the air, a fragile balance teetering on the edge of fracture. Outside, Royce's patrol continued relentlessly, a grim reminder of the forces arrayed against Ilara's tender guardianship. As the day faded, Ilara returned to the ward, her fingers brushing lightly over Lumen's cool glass arm. The child's faint pulse echoed in her mind, a beacon of hope amid the encroaching shadows. She understood now more than ever that beneath the surface of this cold, clinical world, a storm was gathering, one that would test the limits of fragility, resilience, and the very meaning of life itself. The chapter closed with Ilara's whispered vow lingering in the stale air. "I will protect you, no matter the cost." The orphanage slept uneasily, but for Ilara, the night was alive with the quiet promise of resistance and the haunting question of what it truly meant to be human in a world built on glass. Boss's orders are clear. The night air hung heavy with a silence that seemed unnatural, as if the carnival itself was holding its breath. Mara led me away from the bustling laughter and bright lights, her hand cold in mine as we slipped through a narrow gap between two faded tents. The scent of popcorn and sugar faded behind us, replaced by the dank, musty smell of earth and old wood. Shadows clung to the walls of the passageway, stretching and twisting like dark fingers reaching for us. I stumbled once, nearly losing my footing on the uneven ground, but Mara's steady grip kept me anchored. Her eyes, dark and weary beneath the cracked remnants of once vibrant carnival makeup, flickered with a strange mixture of fear and determination. She didn't speak much, but the silence between us was heavy with unspoken truths. At last, the passage opened into a cavernous chamber dimly lit by a faint, flickering glow. My breath caught in my throat as I took in the sight before me. Hundreds of small orbs floated suspended in the air like fragile bubbles, each one containing a flickering light that pulsed gently within. As I drew closer, the lights resolved into ghostly shapes, faces frozen in expressions of terror, sorrow, and confusion. "These are the souls," Mara whispered, her voice trembling, "trapped here beneath the carnival, caught in the endless hunger that feeds this place." The chamber's walls seemed to ripple with an otherworldly light, casting twisted shadows that danced and writhed around us. The muffled laughter of the carnival above was a distant echo, cold and cruel, a mockery of the joy that once drew so many to this cursed place. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. The carnival wasn't just a place of fun and games, it was a trap, a parasite feeding off the life essence of its visitors, and those trapped souls were proof of its insatiable hunger. Mara's gaze met mine, haunted yet resolute. "I was once like you," she said softly, "a visitor who never left. Now I'm bound to this place, forced to serve its will, caught between hope and despair. There's no escaping it, at least not alone." Her words sank deep into me, the weight of her fate pressing down on my chest. But beneath the fear, something fierce stirred, a determination I hadn't known I possessed. If the carnival fed on souls, then I would find a way to starve it. I couldn't let this cycle continue, not while there was still a flicker of hope left. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, as we stood among the silent, flickering prisoners. I squeezed Mara's hand, feeling the tremble in her fingers. "We have to fight," I said, voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "We have to end this." A distant sound, a faint, twisted melody carried on the wind, reminded me of the carnival's relentless hunger. But in that moment, surrounded by the trapped souls and Mara's quiet strength, I knew I wasn't alone. Whatever horrors awaited us above, I would face them. For the lost, for the trapped, and for myself. As we turned to leave the chamber, the flickering lights seemed to pulse brighter for a moment, as if acknowledging a spark of defiance in the darkness. The carnival's secrets had been unveiled, and the battle for freedom was only just beginning. The path ahead was shrouded in shadows and peril, but beneath the carnival's grotesque charm, a fire had been lit, and I would carry it through the night, no matter the cost. The carnival's hunger was vast, ancient, and merciless, but so was my will to survive, and I would not go quietly into that endless night. The air inside the funhouse was thick with a sickly sweet scent, a concoction of stale popcorn and something metallic, almost like blood. Eli stepped cautiously beneath the flickering neon lights that buzzed overhead, casting warped shadows across the warped mirrors lining the narrow corridor. Each reflective surface twisted his image into grotesque parodies. His eyes enlarged to monstrous proportions, his mouth stretched into a silent scream, and limbs elongated into impossible angles. The laughter that echoed around him was not the jovial sound of children at play, but a distorted cacophony that seemed to crawl beneath his skin, crawling with intent. Eli. Eli, the voice slithered from the shadows, a warped echo of his own name that sent a shiver racing down his spine. He spun around, heart hammering, but the corridor behind him was empty, save for the flickering reflections that now danced like mad specters in the mirrors. "You can't run," the laughter whispered. "You belong to us now." His breath hitched as the walls seemed to close in, the carnival's twisted magic tightening its grip. Suddenly, the floor beneath him gave way, or so it felt, and he found himself stumbling into a tent shrouded in darkness, save for the faint glow of lanterns that threw long, quivering shadows across the canvas walls. Figures coalesced within the dim light, shapes he recognized, or thought he recognized. Faces of lost townsfolk, their eyes hollow, mouths twisted in expressions of silent agony. They reached out with ghostly hands, their whispers a chorus of accusation and despair. "Why did you come?" one voice mourned. "Why do you look for truth where only lies reside?" Eli clenched his fists, fighting the urge to flee as the shadows pressed closer. Doubts surged like a tempest inside him. Was this real, or another cruel trick? He felt himself wavering on the edge of madness when a sudden movement caught his eye. Mara stepped forward, her pale face framed by dark hair, the faded carnival makeup cracked and worn. Her eyes held a flicker of warning and something else, urgency. "Hold on to yourself, Eli," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising din of the carnival's laughter outside. "They want you to break, to forget, to become one of them." Her presence was a lifeline, a fragile thread tethering him to reality. Eli took a deep breath, drawing strength from her words. The shadows recoiled slightly, the whispers fading into a distant hum. But the reprieve was brief. The tent dissolved around him, replaced by the piercing glare of carnival lights and the grinning figure of Mr. Grin. His painted smile stretched impossibly wide, a grotesque mask that twisted and pulsed as if alive. The carnival's laughter surged into a maddening roar, drowning out all else. "You think you can stop the feast?" Mr. Grin hissed, advancing with unnatural speed. "This carnival is eternal. It feeds. It consumes. And you," he lunged forward, the smile widening, stretching beyond all reason, threatening to swallow Eli whole. Eli stumbled back but steadied himself, the fear igniting a fierce defiance within. "I'm not yours," he spat, voice shaking but resolute. "I won't let you take me." The illusion wavered, the grotesque smile faltering as if surprised by his resistance. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by Eli's ragged breathing. Then, as the carnival's laughter softened to a sinister chuckle, the world shifted again, and Eli found himself alone, the funhouse corridor stretching endlessly before him, the distorted mirrors reflecting not monsters, but a boy determined to fight. But even as he moved forward, the echo of laughter lingered, a chilling reminder that the carnival's hunger was far from sated, and its illusions would tighten ever more. The nightmare was only beginning. The carnival's lights flickered erratically above me, casting long, trembling shadows across the cracked pavement beneath my feet. The air was thick with the scent of popcorn and stale candy, but beneath that sweet aroma lurked something far darker, something bitter and metallic that made my stomach churn. Around me, the carnival pulsed with its usual chaotic energy, bright rides spinning, the shrill laughter of children mixing with the sharp calls of vendors. But I felt detached, as if watching a scene from a distance. The laughter, once a sound that promised joy and escape, now echoed hollowly like a ghost trapped in a room that refused to close. I closed my eyes, and suddenly the world shifted. I was no longer standing on the carnival grounds. I was back on the carousel, the one with the chipped paint and faded horses that creaked as they moved. Tommy was there, his freckled face lit up by the glow of the carnival lights, eyes sparkling with pure delight. We chased each other around the carousel, our laughter ringing clear and true, untainted by fear or suspicion. It was the kind of laughter that comes from the very core of childhood, a sound so honest and free, it seemed to push back the darkness itself. "Come on, Eli, catch me if you can," Tommy called, his voice carrying over the hum of the carnival. I grinned, heart pounding with the thrill of the chase, and launched after him, my feet pounding the worn wooden platform. For a moment, the carnival was just a playground, a place of wonder and magic. But the moment shattered as suddenly as it had come. The carousel's music warped into a distorted melody, the horses' painted eyes flickering into grotesque smiles. The lights above us dimmed, and the laughter twisted into something sinister, a low, guttural sound that crawled under my skin. Tommy's face blurred, melting into a mask of terror before vanishing entirely. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, as the carnival's true nature clawed its way back into the present. Opening my eyes, I found myself once again beneath the flickering canopy of carnival lights. Mara stood nearby, her pale face framed by dark hair that fell in tangled strands, her makeup cracked and faded like a broken mask. She approached me quietly, her eyes heavy with the weight of the secrets she carried. "They don't want you to remember the laughter," she said softly, her voice a fragile whisper against the roar of the crowd. "Because once you do, you see what they're really feeding on. Not money, not fear, but hope, joy, innocence. Every smile, every laugh, they take it all." I swallowed hard, a cold shiver running down my spine. Mara's words echoed the terrible truth I'd been trying to deny. The carnival's charm was a cruel illusion, a siren song designed to lure us deeper into its grasp. And the laughter, it was the sweetest bait of all. "How do you fight something like that?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Mara's eyes met mine, steady and resolute despite the sorrow that clouded them. "You remember what it feels like to laugh without fear. You hold on to that, even when it feels like the darkness will swallow you whole. That's where the fight begins." I nodded, the memory of Tommy's grin burning bright in my mind. Somewhere beneath the twisted funhouse mirrors and shadowed tents, a spark of hope flickered still. I had to believe it was enough. As I turned away, my gaze caught a cracked funhouse mirror nearby. The glass shimmered unnaturally, and I saw my reflection flicker between the boy I was and the haunted figure I was becoming. The eyes staring back at me were large and observant, but now they held a weight I hadn't known before, a mix of fear, determination, and something harder to name. The carnival's laughter echoed once more, colder and more menacing, but I stood firm. The illusion was powerful, but so was the memory of what had once been pure and good. The carnival might feed on joy, but it could not destroy it completely. And neither could I. With a deep breath, I stepped forward into the night, the carnival's glow casting long shadows behind me. The struggle was far from over, but the echoes of lost laughter gave me a reason to fight. I wouldn't let the carnival win, not yet. As the night deepened, the carnival's sinister symphony played on, but I carried with me the sound of a laughter that refused to die, a beacon in the suffocating darkness.